blessings. Welcome forward to Reasonings right here at the Tree of Life. I am your host, Jerome Sage Butler, on diplomatic assignment from the Divine Realms. This is Archetype and Source, Part 2. After the first installation of this, information the Divine Realms, wanted me to bring forward, they said there was a lot that was left unsaid. So they would like, that I would, you know, make it more wholesome. So here is part two, archetype and source. So because a lot of it is rooted in the rudimentary discipline of anthropology, because even though it's advanced, it's also, rudimentary, because in a sense it's looking back into what has been, and in a lot of cases, the beings who are looking back, if they are from one side of the dimension, they look with unknowing pervadance. But if you are from the I am, the ancestral, then those information they pervade are in the genetic memory, what is called your DNA memory. Now, there is not a lot of black epigeneticists out there, but they're enough. And one of the arguments sometimes that I think they go a little bit away with is looking at the psychological tendencies that our ancestors gave us forward because of a few hundred years of psychological and physiological and physical trauma. And we cannot minimize that, but the epigenetics goes much further, that within our DNA is a tendency to act a specific way because there is a coding that's been upon our very existence that has not changed for millennials upon millennials upon millennials. And that is the essence of what epigenetics and epigenealogy is really about, deeper than just some psychological tendencies or traumatic behaviors. Is a DNA retention, is a memory that has to be decoded from the psychological, the subconscious memory bank, because we lived those experiences so long ago. It is not codified in the normal wavelength and patterns of how thoughts are recognized today, especially toward the stratification of how thoughts go. You would have to have a broader spectrum of your self-awareness before you can begin to at least process some of those thoughts, right? So moving beyond the essence of epigenetics, just making a grounding upon which my arguments are based. And as such, I'm saying this to postulate one particular thing. Most of the anthropologists and the arguments that are accepted are not First Nations, because we are under the empire of a nation removed from such experiences, right? And so genetically that memory is sparse within them. They have portions of that memory, which I'll explain later on. And the core essence of it, that is the First Nations people. Hey. And we have to speak that from our interactions with our ancestry, from the interactions with the divine plane, through the astral and the cosmic realization, going through and across, down and up the rivers, the streams, sea of your lifetimes. So, as I've made my preamble for part two, let's get into the argument. When I left part one of the arguments was building towards the convergence of the time zones, the timelines, as you know, have it on your Facebook. The convergence of the timelines, that the more we're going forward is the more we're going back. So it is so strange to say that, meaning what is to come has already been. And because what is to come has already been, those who cross over, they get the templates of our realities. And that is how the so-called ancient shaman, whatever we call them now, the master scribes and such, um, articulated, expropriated the understanding of these information, is how we process them today. So the first cause in looking at the kind of information and how it has been presented to us is to first step into your genetical, your anthropological genetical box. That is something that is stratified within your ancestry. And if your reality is externalized, you will have problems in doing that. Because one of the first thing I recognized was how I had an issue with bringing that which was from the cosmic plane into an understanding that was palatable on the so-called conscious plane. And so, why I started out with the epigenetics, and then I come forward to the fact that the convergence of the timelines, that it seems like the human mind is getting more advanced, but advanced civilization existed before. So we are going to examine the evidence now, or the call I have made for the true evidence to be brought forward, because it's been in the mystery school systems for a very, very long time. So I'll explain all of this as I go forward. So I'll lay out my preamble, and we're getting into the argument. So because a lot of this information, like I said, it's in the mystery school system. How many of us are made to thought, to think, are basically how these masters have articulated this information onto us, like the four great rebels that went into the orchard. It's how the information has been articulated to us. You understand me? Whose vantage point we are manifestations of, or within the manifestation of, within whose reality are we pervading. And so these things are very, very important as we examine these deep essences of our true authentic place and being on this terra firma. So why I was calling for the evidence is because I know for what is now thousands of years, these evidence have been hidden in the mystery school system and has been handed down from generation to generation. In one of my previous lifetimes, I was a student of these mystery school systems, and here's how I got this information first. Let me give some things that I already gave it a epigenetical basis, so listen me carefully. So in my previous lifetime, I too came, like in this life, to be aware of the mysteries of reality and began to study them through the mystery school systems of the time. Upon studying these things, I recognized in several of my lifetimes, because I did it in several lifetimes, it seems like it's just who I am. Hey, I was a scribe, but I broke free from the structured systematic decision and the dissemination of the information. You see? So, how I'll put it in context, I would say in today's age, I would be the first in my lifetime, one of the first cosmic whistleblowers, right? Because people wonder where I get this knowledge from, because those who know, right? And I've not, they know me. I always say I'm not in a part of no secret organization, because I am not. It's not a joke. I'm not speaking double-mindedly. But yet still the information is within the mystery school system, and I speak like a adept or a master or a grandmaster within the mystery school system. In previous lifetimes, I had been within these mystery school systems, came out in several lifetimes and disseminated the information. And I made a pact with several beings in a previous lifetime. The ancestors give me the right, I can say this, with several beings in previous lifetimes, several living beings, human beings, I mean. And we made a pact, an oath, to do this for as long as the cycles of eternity is, to consistently be the scribes, the seekers of the information, the collator of the information. And unlike some of my still organized brothers, I have decided to share that information with all. And though keeping my meritocratic nature and my integrity, I've not broken the law. I've never given someone an orb of light that never deserved it. So therefore, I've never broken the law in that regard, though I am independent of the designed mechanism of the mastery of the mystery schools. So a little bit of my epigenetical origins to how I have expropriated this information. So I had a friend who is a third generation lodge, and he's very powerful in antiquity in his bloodline within the mystery school. I initiated him first into the tree of life, you know, mysteries, and was showing him the light through how my teachers have brought it to me, and how those lifetimes of our decisions have brought us to consistently share this information. So after that, his family and his bloodline order called him up, and he went into the mystery school. When he went to the mission school for a while, I didn't hear from him. First time I heard from him, maybe 9 or so months after, he said to me, I'm gonna steal these books that I seen there. I'm gonna bring them to you. All the shit that you've been all the stuff that you've been telling me, it's right here, man. It's right here, man. How did you know this stuff, man? And I said to him, remember, brother, I told you, I've been doing this for lifetimes upon lifetime, being to the light, being to the darkness, eons upon eons upon eons upon eons. And when I came to my awakening upon when I fell off of that cliff as a child, daddy, the whole memory system came back. Upon the 12-year-old, I'm coming out of that plane into this plane, it's conflicted because I just became so sad that I wanted Tara to go back into that state of being where all things were present. Hashiyaru, Hashiye, Oshua, Hoshai, Hishara, Tashiru Shunya, Hashinishiru, Hartasanchi Tara, Harnjinaro Kukreni, Hitana, Hardita Yeshremono, Haritata, Ha, Hinero, Hatani. I was suicidal because this plane was so fractured and broken. The hearts around me were trying to devour the light that was in me. I thought they all knew that they were light too. I didn't know that when you had this light, you were a threat to egomaniacs who were clothed in darkness, or people who just can't believe a human being, a male child, should be so bright or beautiful or attractive. So they went to perverse me, to destroy me. And so from then on, I receded into myself. If it was not for Christ, I would not share this information with no one because I've lived my life and I'm at peace with myself without the constructivism of an external paradigm. So when I came into this understanding now and started decoding it once again after I lost it at age 12 by all the despair and all the problems, when I regained it upon my awakening through Christ, it conflicted, like I said, with the biblical paradigm, but the Lord said, you are here to share the information. One of the first things I did was specifically show people that the angels are what is termed fallen angels. But there are other dimensions within so-called extraterrestrial beings that we're going to examine. And so here now we're going to seamlessly move into the actual bed of the reasoning. When the Watchers, those interdimensional, one of the interdimensional light races came here expressing a desire to observe and to collate the information of this stage along the timeline, because they had been through the early versions of the timeline and had gone into other dimensions of experimentations within the other that are developed. And it was their duty to be the guardians over the actuality, protectors of the reality. So they would return every so often to see what was the development of the state of being and its externalization as ways of life. So when they decided to make a disagreeable act against the order of the cosmos, because they felt all their years of watching without interference, seeing cycles of the same thing happen over and over again, unto apocalypse, unto the Kurja, unto the reset, and over and over and over and over again. Some got despondent within themselves and began to think we can create something else. A slight change will ripple innumerable into infinitum, and they were willing to see if the experiment would work. And hence they came down, executed their experiments, and as I said, it's not just as some people say they came and lied with the children. There were genetic experiments, and many sub-creatures, sublets and things came out of it. And these are squarely placed in mythology and abstracted therein, but they were archetypal understanding of the substructure of what is now called this reality, because it is a fracturing takani from the old reality, right? So when they started the otherness, that project, right, that created the end result of man now thinking he's back in the divine plane, but that is a light unto himself. And that was the issue, this light unto themselves. And so they venerated these fallen, gave them the most precious and strongest of their genealogy to procreate, because they needed the strongest because the frequencies were so high. And so they started this divine rights to rule, order of a sub-divine culture within this dimension, abstracting the sacred divine culture, because the essence was they had become tired of it. Not us, the watchers. And so they sculpted this reality. And the divine council, they made a most damning decision against the watchers, which is termed the fallen. And hence, their term, the fall, is what is also the catalyst of the fall of the human race, the human condition, the human beingness, and the now evolved, devolved manifestations of a very confused, abstracted, disembodied, decompartmentalized entity. So their children, and this project was not blessed by the Godhead. It was abhorred. And such they were born to bear the brunt of their sorrows. And such they were exiled from outer paradise and could not return into the nuclei. They could not return into the center of soul. And as such, their children began to carve this plane into a kind of a sub-dimension of the divine realms, where they said, and I want you to hear me carefully, if we could not go back into the divine celestial city of our birth, and the latter generation would say of our fathers, then we would make this plane as that plane is. And so, this might again offend a lot of people who love the human, the sapiens account of life. So when the Nephilims, born of this decision, started to turn the earth, Tiamat, into the heavens, they constructed a grid made of electromagnetic particles. Now we just call them stone, because some have possibly lost the charge, but it's just a trick, it still has a charge. They arranged these magnetic stones in certain alignment as to mirror the vibrational frequency of the worlds above the firmament. And they began to forthright cut, they fashioned themselves implements, conjurings. They went into as many sacred knowledge as they could muster from the knowledge they had from the celestial realms. They fashioned the first machines in this dimension to harvest these magnetic stones that they used to align this frequency, this grid that emanated a resonant frequency that was akin to the frequency above the firmament. Now, when this civilization, some call it the Atlantean civilization, some call it many other names, some say it's Lemuria, before the Atlantean civilization, this first civilization achieved an enormous ability because of the nature of these beings coming from the other dimension and their knowledge of aerodynamics. They were able to go to the one part of the firmament that they can enter through, because it was a portal they've used countless times, and they usually spy into the other dimension, and they used to take information from the higher planes and take it down to their human offsprings and the human generations that would serve them. And this information is called the divination and is the basis, sorry, of the mystery school system. It is stolen information. It is forbidden information. It is hidden information. And so, because the divine rights to rule and the sacred bloodlines of the earth, in this reality I'm talking about, came through from their reality, that is where the power of expropriation comes. That is why they have been the most powerful since this dispensation, because they are the ones that had the knowledge of their forebearers, their celestial parents, these half-breeds, and they have that gift of strength, of wisdom, of power to expropriate this plane. So their fathers, their mothers built a most advanced civilization. That is what is in the psyche of every single being that is brilliant now, dreaming of the most electrifying, electromagnetic living specimen in this wavelength that is anything near Yeshua to the divine realms. The book Crystallids spoke of this reality. Because like I said, during these times, the Atlantean times, the Nephilims had humans with them. Tare. They rode the dinosaurs, the humans rode the dinosaurs. They rode the woolly mammoths, the humans rode the woolly mammoths. Do you understand? The evolution is one and the same. They were not in another dimension, and the humans were in another dimension. They were side by side. So here's what happened now. Because of the abhorrence of this statement by Samael, he said, I will rise Sartum Chandire, my throne above the throne of the highest cosmos, right? Tatare. And so he angered the divine council, he angered the Most High, and they made a decision, and that decision was to destroy the Nephilim presence, Atlantean civilization from off the earth. Notice they always said in Atlantis, the waters came and took the land. And nobody wants to put Ursunabi's flood, Noah's flood, is that what it is in Judeo-Christianity, into the time, Sharu, of Atlantis. But it was the time of Atlantis, and it was the time of the antediluvian world, when Ursunabi's flood, not only did the waters from the heavens came down from above the firmament, but also from beneath the firmament, Taru. And that is what also happened, that the Atlanteans recounted the waters coming up from beneath, but the waters also poured from the heavens as well too. And so the civilization of this advanced apostasy, Takan, was destroyed. So what are the mystery school systems about? They're about rebuilding Kantanari, this reality. You must understand. If you cannot understand the weirdness of these beings and what they're plotting and why it is that the most brilliant minds are amongst them, but this is what they want. Automatum of thought ideation, Takan. Because in Atlantis, as I said to you, if you built a machine, it would operate, because they knew of the electromagnetic spectrum, the very essence of all energy here. Tesla discovered it, and it very well made him die a pauper, Cody, because such a mind cannot play that game of self-centered power-mongering. So this knowledge came to the mystery school by right of their progeny, Yeshua. And as such, when the flood destroyed, certain of these Nephilims were given celestial pardons, because remember, they were cousins and brothers, and family members of beings within the celestial council, and as such, some of them were spared, and they saved certain information. And here's the part that gets interesting. These giant books that can barely be lifted by 2 or 3 human beings are their writings and the recording of all their information. When you hear me calling out about information, it's select few. You know what I'm talking about. I'm not being disrespectful, facetious, or anything else. And so these information are their information that they have left and is guarded by their bloodline, autocracy, and such and such and such. Yeah, the oligarchy, right? And as such, they guard these things. But there were others that were hidden away in different parts of the earth. And so they consistently search them out. They search the oracles from the oracle of Delphi all the way into the new generation of oracles for those little things which gives them back pieces of the decoding encryption that is in these massive books of the cosmos and dimensions, and how to conjure, to make golems, that is the clay, the electromagnetic properties in the clay, come alive, right? And stamp like a man, right? And beat like a mighty, you know, doomsday machine. So the spirit is reminding me that it reminded me to tell you that the same gate, the portals, is also recorded as a mandala, Kardi. And we're going to come to the mandala in a bit. So the Mr. School information is the knowledge of the Nephilims stored in all these sacred great texts that are being maintained, and slowly, as man is able, as his mind accordingly evolves, as the timeline goes along, as he gets back into synchronicity with that timeline when the Nephilims are here, shady, if the electromagnetic spectrum, the entangled particles, the frequency. In Christianity it says, I will pour out my spirit on flesh. In our next astral script is called the age of Aquarius. So in this age, when the energy will get stronger in the mental and emotional and psychological faculties, that they'll be able to start decode more of these codes, then they can go into the augmenting of the reality and start going to more strongly the interdimensional travel. All these colliders and all these things are trying to open these doors and figuring out the right sequence and pattern. Yes, it's like a musical notation, right? And they just don't know all the patterns and all the sequences. They're trying to figure out all the patterns and the sequences to what? Alas, recreate the fallen Atlantis. You see? So if you want to know why your dollars and all of the resources of the earth cannot be made to serve the simple life, this is why. These are the dreams they hold. But as I say, so after the Nephilims were taken off the plane, majority of them and who remained shared the information with their progeny. The beings that were left were what we call the first archetype of the master builders, right? And I will stay on point and I will not go off point. The first master builders, as you can recount, I was asking about the buildings that were in wood before stone. One of the points just before the fall of the great Nephilim empires was that the warfare amongst them had gotten so severe that they had begun to destroy the trees within the environment, and they had moved from destroying the trees within the environment as their consciousness and a desire to lift themselves to the thrones of heaven. They first started to expropriate the trees. Now you might say, trees. Well, those trees were trees to the giants and homes to us. But I'll get to that. These trees were so big, they were big enough to be like your community. They were big enough to be like an entire nation, i.e. Cyprus. Anyway, that's another day. And so, yeah, the island of Cyprus, you heard me right. And so, these massive trees in the Hindu text that survive, again, some of the whistleblowing that I did and others like me did in that timeline, we exposed some of that stuff. And so that stuff came out, and people began to recognize that, there's information here about things that are so deep and intricate that we have to really get into examining them a little bit more. So in the Hindu script, it speaks of the time I'm telling you about, and that time is called Prajapati. Now, many other Mr. School systems I've called it by other names as time goes on. And you probably wonder sometimes why there's a little delay. Remember I told you I was one of the first whistleblowers in that cosmic thing? Well, it's no different. They still don't want me to say these things, right? So you have to bear with me. Okay, so all of this information that was stored and, as I said, came into information that was available to some mystics outside of these divine rights to rule organization and council, began to show that there were some specific trees that existed previously on this plane. These massive trees were so much, they covered most of the Earth's plane. And they were expropriated not by human beings, but by the Nephilims, who created the first built environment through wood. Tatare. Wood. The first Mr. School is the Carpenters Guild. Dan is the Carpenters Guild. Long before the Stonemasons Guild was the Carpenters Guild. Because the Nephilims first cut trees, mastering craftsmanship of wood, then they went on to metals. After metals, then stone. And after mastering this knowledge, from what they knew from above the plains, they had these books that stored the knowledge. So after the flood, and man needed to come now to start his own so-called civilization, where did you think he started? Right upon the ruins of the Nephilim civilization. He began to dig out the information and began to use, by decoding that information, to fashion the massive trees that have been cut by the Nephilim, that have been left all around. Some were hewn halfway up and still was like 50 stories in the sky. And so the first Carpenters Guild, they learned to carve these apartments in these massive megaliths, the trees here of Prajapati. And so this is where treehouse comes from, that we didn't build a house in the tree. The tree is our house. And so this first art of fashioning the wood and making it livable, decorative, and aesthetically pleasing, the Carpenters Guild. Then we went on to learn to master metallurgy, and then we did stoneworks. After stoneworks, when the Nephilims fell, the Nephilims were working on a cyberlink network. And that cyberlink network was a way to open the portals and go and attack directly the celestial city. And so the augmented reality is all about that, channeling all the frequencies, our thoughts, our energy to one diabolical end, right? Which is the battle, what is termed the battle of Armageddon, when these two thoughts will ultimately have to clash, and a resolution will have to be made once and for all for the eternal, right? So when they fell, they were about to create that hyperlink that could take mass hordes of souls into the next dimension and to start that war. That's what they were building, their plans were all about. And that's why they were confounded, and that's why their tabernacles and all their civilization was destroyed. But they left their bloodlines here, and their bloodlines are carrying out the divine rights to rule. That is why they are the master of everything, mostly because it's from their bloodlines that this first plane started coming outside of paradise. It is their forebearers who took us out of the harmony of the Fibonacci, out of the harmony of paradise. It is they who interrupted our cosmic journey and has caused a great forgetfulness in all the bastardization and the abominations genetically and progenitally that they have created ever since. And these are some of the great abominations the word speaks about. That's why it says a special place to be prepared for them, because they are not exactly souls that were made in the image and the likeness of the divine, because they are abominations, you understand? Every soul and seed is of its own egg. That means that the masculine energy is always masculine in every manifestation of itself. It cannot transform into feminine properties. Neither can the feminine energy transform into masculine properties. It is not gender based, it is atomic and celestial based. Fission and fusion are real, and one is an obstruction of divine analysis and manifestation. 50 years ago, we did not understand this. 15, 40, 100, 250,000 years ago, these were the technologies that were being used to open that hypergrid, to create that hyperlink. And that's where we're going again. So as the reset will come and the confounding will come, and man will wake up not knowing where the superstructures come from around him, and we will go scraping from the earth and salvaging these machines like we always do to make these pruning hooks and shears, right? We raided these temples of these Nephilim. We raided their great promenades and their great palaces. We repurposed them into massive complexes that entire nations lived in, because a lot of these complexes were so big, it stretched for literally thousands upon thousands of miles. You understand me? And you know, my great teacher in anthropology, Nabi Yao, used to say, you ever noticed before this flood, if you lift the grid of the earth, you can find where the walls connect to the civilization that's still going over thousands of miles of landmass. That is a portion of it now is now sea, but you can see, if you understand the old world, you can literally see the walls, the mountains, how they connect, the constructions, how they connect over thousands upon thousands of miles. You see? And these things, my brothers and my sisters, are the things why those who are at the top are far indifferent from those who are amidst the midst. These are the things. So as each generation of these progenited Nephilim bloodlines and their offsprings and their descendants have awoken, they're called into the mystery schools to decode things, because as we get closer to the age of Aquarius, until that age where they mastered all these technologies, their souls are being called into service. And as such, we are being called into service. We who are here of the I Am, right? We are on the divine right, right? We are not, let me make this clear, we are not clerics that have no seeking to take over no religious community. We are not political leaders seeking to take over no government. We are not no academician masters trying to take over the pedagogy. This is intercessors in the Christian language. Put it another way, we are diplomats, say, from the divine plane coming into this plane. And more like myself will start declare themselves like this. Don't get confused. Don't get, oh, ooh. Emissaries. Emissaries. Great matriarchs, patriarchs, emissaries. Emissaries from the divine plane, who in several generations have brought this information, who has not been killed, who has not been taken away and forced to serve the same that they are against so much. And many others have lost the complete balance of their frequencies, because higher frequency weapons, metaphysical weapons, have been launched upon them. And so they cannot keep their vibrations together. Many times as I am bringing information forward, you do not know the battle in the spiritual plane that's coming on. But I trust Yahuwah with my entire heart. And as such, this is why I keep going, right? And what I miss in a point, it will always bring it back to me and say, Jerome, restate it, right? So because we learned from these mystery school information how to master carpentry, how to master iron ore, how to master the magnetic stone, how to master the electromagnetic instruments, how to master interdimensional travel in new mechanisms, new machines. The Vimanas are replete with a lot of the stolen information, the whistleblower information from those mystery schools. that already shows you all of these so-called technology that was created in 1950 and 1960 existing eons say ago. Meet George Jetson, Issa is boy Elroy, daughter Judy. Man living on asteroids. My car, my autonomous car. Ooh, ooh, I can just turn it into my briefcase. I can just switch it into my work desk and I could fly it back to my house because it is 5G. It is Internet of Things. I got my car that's small. I got my A AI. Hello, Mr. Jetson. My AI. My little astro dog, my little robot dog. The Japanese, they did that. They did the astro dog. Woo, 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 woo. Meet your Jackson. And so here we go into this technological. Technological. Is it a dream? Is it a dream? Is it a dream? Dream, 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 dream. Show I saw this in my dream. In my dream, in my dreams. Saw this in a dream. Is this a dream? Life is a dream. Life is a dream. I saw this in my dream. My dream, my dream. Meet George Jetson. And so this augmented reality, this cyborg, this Android operating system, this cybernet, this cyberlink, this ooh, Internet of Things. Ooh, I got my automated made, my automated made. I got my AI, I got my killer robot, I got my artificial intelligence, I got my augmented reality. Guess what? I just bought a brand new lung and I bought it fresh on the market. Because my transhumanism is telling me that I can be a better kind of organism. So I'm gonna put this microchip in my Put this microchip in my Put this microchip so I can moonwalk and watch my car just moonwalk alongside me and watch my AI just moonwalk with the motion of my body. I got my advertisement in my glass. I got my augmented reality. I say ooh, 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 yeah, yeah. Nothing new under the sun, under the sun, under the sun, under the sun, moon and stars. Nothing new, nothing new. Know who you are, know who you are, know who you are, know who you are. Until next time, this has been Jerome Sage Butler on diplomatic assignment from the Divine Plains, sharing a word that must resonate into the cosmic because it is already here, fragmented, disjointed, and it was my duty to just put it together in these two videos. Blessings. Hey, listen out for all the other snippets from all the other beings. Put it all together. Behold the oracle of oracles. Keep healthy, keep strong, keep safe in your mental frequencies and your mental faculties. Remember that you are a superb cosmic gift to yourself, to your environment, to your community. Continue to be this magnificent cosmic gift of being, the nature of being. Zine